Now, the second edition of the Actors Guild of Nigeria International Festival, tagged Nollywood Meets Hollywood, held at the Dream Magic Studio in Los Angeles amidst glitz and glamour. And it was a landmark meeting between the Screen Actors Guild American and Federation of Television and Radio Artists, casting directors, top entertainment impresario, and the Nigerian community in Hollywood. The landmark meeting between the AGN and the SAG-AFTRA was meant to foster collaboration between the two guilds along business opportunities. Well, joining us now is the national president of the AGN, Emeka Rollas. Good morning and welcome to the program. Great to see you.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good to have you, President. Nollywood meets Hollywood. That's interesting. It's exciting. Tell us more about it, but more specifically, is Nollywood ready to take over the world in terms of standards, in terms of skill set, in terms of quality of output?
Yes, I'll be speaking from the perspective of the Actors Guild of Nigeria. Because if you're talking about Nollywood ready to take over Hollywood, we need to take over the world. We need to get our acts right. And that was the essence of the meeting with the Screen Actors Guild of America. We needed to fine-tune our standard contracts, residuals and royalties, which is not happening here. And you know that in Nigeria today we have many big companies making films here, and nobody is talking about royalty or residuals paid to actors, which is the major source of an actor's income. This has brought about all the causes of, you see big names, when they fall sick, they don't get help because their financial remuneration from the work they do does not extend to royalties and residuals. So because we are an affiliate of the Federation of International Actors, we need to begin to tap into these global standards as it concerns the actor in Nollywood. And if we get it right, then we'll be able to stand to defend actors in the work they do in Nollywood against maybe producers and big firms. Let me also point out that last year, the Screen Actors Guild of America, SAG-AFTRA, and the Writers Guild embarked on a strike against the big studios. While that strike was going on, those big studios were in Africa, picking contents. A country or the area where nobody is asking them, how much are you paying for this work? They were busy picking all of these contents for their platforms. So they didn't care, they didn't bother much about the strike in America because they have somewhere they were already milking the people there and nobody's asking them questions. So we needed to bridge this gap by creating, and it's an annual event. We have done it last year in Miami, and this year we did it in California, Los Angeles.
All right. Now, let's talk about, because I like that you spoke about how the big studios were in Africa picking up content. And you find that a lot of this ends up happening in South Africa, and even Nigerian productions as well. You see a lot of them are now being taken to South Africa. Not even now. It's over a long period of time that a lot of production has been happening in South Africa for a number of reasons, but let's just call it structural reasons, right? Now, what is it that South Africa is doing that Nigeria cannot do or is not ready to do? Because by now we would have thought that, especially with regards to the standards around actors and the protection of actors and their remuneration and so forth, there's so much exchange happening between the two countries. Nigerian actors are taking part in South African films. South African actors are taking part in Nigerian films. So why have we been unable to raise our standards to what's happening in countries like South Africa?
Yes, it's the same thing we're talking about. In South Africa, they do not have a very vibrant film industry like Nigeria has, but they have more structure. And their structure is working for them. Nobody will take up work in South Africa without clarifying what the contract specifies. And in South Africa, if you do a project in South Africa, I'll be very frank with you, the film you produce here in Nigeria, even if you make that film with 200 million naira, a film produced in South Africa with less will make more money in terms of sales before big studios or pay platforms. Because while they have a structure, they have a standard. In Nigeria, most actors do not have managers to speak for them on issues. So these people just come on you and take advantage of your ignorance and play on you. You begin to work as if you're helping a producer. Whereas this is where you feed and the actor or the producer feeds from as well. But here it's taking like it's a relationship business.
Why?
It's emotional. So
why haven't we been
that's
able to
why every group, a union that is protecting their members should seek for standardization, not further proliferation of associations here and there. Because this is one of the problems in Nigeria. You see people telling you, I am Igbo wood, I am Kani wood, I am Yoruba wood. When you now come into the standardization of things, that particular tribal sentiment begins to play out, because somebody who is here wants to support the brother instead of coming up with the truth and say, look, we are an industry and we have a global standard. Like I speak with you now, we have the Roman Treaty of the World Intellectual Property Organizations. We have the Treaty of China, which says that the right of the producer is different from the right of the performer. But here in Nigeria, the producer and the performer, somebody goes to sell their rights together. You make a film, after making the film, you go to a pay platform and sell all the rights. And the pay platform begins to use that your film around 50 or 60 countries in the world without giving cost that somebody was in this film and probably was paid less during the production. So you are a one-off actor. You appear in a film, and it ends there.
And it's a good thing you said that, because it also applies to even advertising, because I voiced a couple of adverts, people that voice adverts to the constant royalty payments. The question is, how are you going to bring about that in a society with a lot of the anomalies? And with that, I want to segue. What's the update on the man that died, that drowned, Pope? What's the update on that story? Because it's also part of the things we're talking about the sector. Taking due cognizance, insurance policies, looking at the interests of the artists, royalty payments, because people like that, now we should be able to have constant royalty inflow for his family based on most of his movies that are still being shown.
Okay, update on Junior Pope. I was here and I said that we're about to sue.
Yeah.
In the course of interacting with our legal advisor, he said that from the contract Junior Pope signed with the producer, the AGN didn't have jurisdiction to sue. There was either the direct family or
the locus.
Locus to sue. Either the family or the wife should sue the producer. Now, we go back to that structure we're talking about, because as we just came back from Los Angeles now, we're trying to change a lot of things. We want to begin to license actors.
So is the wife suing on the family?
I do not know.
So they're going to leave it as an act of God. The man is just going, Junior Pope is going to die in vain. That's how it works in Nigeria, right?
I do not know.
So now you say you want to change these structures on who has the locus to sue. Talk more about that.
No, if from the structure we are creating, tapping from the global practice, we're going to begin to license actors. Because we found out also that even the Junior Pope, as at the time of death, was not a due-paying member of the guild. He was just an actor who is big and has not paid dues in the last 1 year before death. Now, if you talk about benefits, for instance, in the normal balance of benefits, you must have to be financially up to date to get benefits. So now, if we begin to upgrade and say, look, you can be acting in Nigeria, you can be a walk-on, you can be involved in what you're doing, but you must have license to practice. And that license you're given means that you are eligible to get all the things you need to get because you have a license. But because what we have found out now is that every other person working on the street because of unemployment goes into the industry as an actor. Goes to one state, register and say, I'm Actors Guild, probably paid 15 or 20,000 naira. And tomorrow you have a problem and you come back to the guild for a one-off payment you made like 2 years ago and begins to drag the name of the guild. So we want to upgrade, we want to unionize. It's no longer about association. This is a union so that we can work as a labor union. So we can confront these organizations who come to rip us off. Because in an organization like this, the actor and the producer are not supposed to belong to the same association because the producer is an employer while the actor is an employee.
Okay. Yeah, you started by saying you will speak from an actor's perspective. Yeah, you went to Miami, you went to LA. You met with Screen Actors Guild. So I can understand why you are talking about actors. But in this ecosystem, There are other players. You just mentioned producers. There are marketers. The issues that were addressed at the conference that you went for, there are issues that also apply to producers and marketers about standards, about royalties, about copyright. What would your guild do in making sure that these other people are carried along so that you don't function in silo or in vain even? Because if they are not part of those issues, you can't achieve much.
Certainly. You know that as it operates, for instance, if you go to other industries, there are no single players. Every player comes from their perspective. When we are done with putting our own house together, it will be easier for us to sit with producers to begin to negotiate. But you cannot negotiate when there is nothing from your side. While we are preparing, producers are also preparing. We are thinking about production managers, production assistants, who for the past 20 years have remained in one fee. If you go to Asaba, Enugu, all of this, they're making films. A married man with family is a production manager of a project and is being given 15,000 naira for a film. A production assistant is being given 10,000 naira to move equipment here and there because nobody is speaking for them. Now, when we are done with putting our documents together, we have something to negotiate with the co-players. But if you come and say, okay, Actors Guild, we're trying to unionize, we must carry all the players along, we'll be getting it wrong because that's where those tribal things and sentiments of association begins to play. But we as a guild, we're putting our house in order. And we're also writing these co-players. Look, from March next year, this is our standard. I hope you're able to meet up, or you set up a committee to meet us halfway. So our committee and your committee will come together and say, okay, now, actors said, we will not go to set if this and this is not provided. And the producer will say, look, we have a country where we don't have money to produce it or provide this, but can we do this? But let us have it. Because we are getting people who are coming into Nigeria. If you don't have these standards, they will rip you off more and believe that you're weak in that angle. So we are carrying everybody along, no doubt.
Okay. Now, most roles, most people in Nollywood have multiple roles. Most actors are producers, are directors, screenwriters. It's not as clear-cut as you would often find in a place like Hollywood, let's say, where, yes, as much as people assume multiple roles, it's still very well defined. Having said that, I'm curious as we're fighting for, advocating for better pay and better welfare and so forth, for all the different people on the production set, I mean, how much are the budgets really? How many big budget films are coming out of Nollywood per year? And what do you consider a big budget? What's the average return on investment right now on a Nollywood film? And I'm not talking the 2 or 3 massive big blockbusters we get per year, on average.
You know, the way films are rated in Nollywood presently, a lot of, for instance, the Netflix, they are here, they are using aggregators to make films, hire people. They put in so much money in making all of these films. And why you see a lot of actors becoming producers is because there is a wrong narrative being sold presently in Nollywood that if you don't produce film, you're not going to make money. And it is because you are acting and you're not making money. So you want to have a title. So it's beginning to shift. And then somebody tells you, I have a personal film I want to produce myself, and then let me make it. From there, I begin to make money. Now, when you set up these standards, the big budget movies that major producers have done, like you heard about the Funke Akindele's film that hit 1 billion naira, becoming the first. There are so many more like that in cinema films. And the government, this present government, have been opening up for interventions through the Creative Economy Ministry, saying, okay, we are bringing out 5 billion for people to access. All these are big budget movies.
Anyway, thank you very much, Emeka Rollas. I don't think Nollywood has more time to deal with these issues. There's something they call artificial intelligence. It's already on its way, taking over everything. So you really have to get the standards together.
It's part of what we also undertook in Los Angeles.
Thank you very much for joining us.